space, the final frontier. These are your adventures as you explore, seeking out new life and civilizations, expanding your borders and exploiting the resources you find, befriending allies, or exterminating the foes that get in your way.
Contact detected entering sector. Configuration unknown. Assessing. Initiating countermeasures.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. Thank you for joining me here on this Saturday, 11 o'clock Saturday Pacific time. Welcome to Star Trek New Worlds. My name is Tony, and in today's episode, we're going to talk about the Notorious Nine, the diplomatic tensions, the potential for war. Is there a possibility for peace? We're going to talk about all that today as we unveil, there we are, the map with the Notorious Nine. That's all our players, save one mysterious Paravian. But if it's your first time here and you're wondering, what in the world, Tony, are you talking about? We are Star Trek New Worlds. We play a turn-based strategy game inspired by the rules of Federation and Empire, and as published by the Amarillo Design Bureau. The magic of the map that you will see here momentarily is produced through Vassal. And we play this game online here with you. Today, we're doing it Twitch, Facebook Live, and YouTube. If you are a Star Trek fan and are so inclined to follow along with our narrative and possibly play in the future, then you can be like our latest subscriber, Melon Merchant. I've got so many ideas and questions about that name, but Melon Merchant is our latest subscriber. Welcome. And he is helping us... he or she is helping us along our journey towards the Magic 500. We're at 374 at the time of this recording. Please help us get along the way to the magic number 500. And so if you hit the subscribe button, please feel free to hit the thumbs up if you like all things Star Trek and turn-based strategy. And of course, if you will see here momentarily as we get along that coffees will be fired as we go. Coffees are a quick way to keep us stimulated, motivated, and keep us carrying on. You can do that through the QR code between me and the chat, and head over to coffee.com/New Worlds, and you can do that there as well. We'll talk about more about that later. Before I go any further, let me just quickly chime in with the chat. We've got Bill Smitty is in the house. Heyo, all my party players, are you here for the sickness? Smitty, that's so trendy. I didn't know that was where you were at. Devin, hey Bill. Daniel, pew pew, our GM in the house. Paul from across the pond is here. Eugene, only minutes away from a thrilling update. War! Who battles? Will others intervene? What was the cause? What will be the terms for peace? Are there others trading and coexisting? Answers start now. Eugene, our latest and greatest public affairs officer, the leader of our media team. Bill Smith, Daniel, Eugene, hello. You Can't Be Petty is in the house, yes. And then, of course, the more of you are joining us now. We are double digits on the viewers as we are live today. Thank you. And, of course, anything we can do to kind of push that number up to get our community growing bigger and bigger. Okay, let me stop talking and let's start going to the data for today's episode. We are at turn 55, 5. For those short circuit fans. It's a very interesting stage in the game. It is the first time that all the factions, of course, save one, are on the map, and we're going to slide over to the data so we can see where we're at. All right, so I'll just rock from the top to the bottom here on the econ chart, and this is just a summary of where we're at in turn 55. So you can see the Tholians are now 51 EP in their economy. They are the lowest income empire in the game, followed shortly by the ISC at 51.5. The Borak, no longer 0, but still only third from the bottom. They are at 53, right behind the Hydrons at 54. The Lyrans sitting pretty right in the middle at 56.5. And of course, the Kzinti, another cat folk like them, just above them by 1 at 57.5. Then we hit the other tier, shall we say, of players in the game. You can actually see that visibly in the chart just down there. Oh my goodness. So the Paravians, 64, separating themselves from the pack, followed by the Federation, just under 70 at 69.5. The Carnivon, again, in their own stratosphere of capability there at 78, and the Klingons leading the pack at 85.5. It's really interesting to see this separation over time, and as you can see with the chart here, this is tracking us over time. You can see even just the difference between turn 53 and 55 as far as economies go, and to what degree they're growing. We'll see here on the map in a second, but it's an interesting sort of strategy for play. If you go at the very beginning, obviously we all start off around the same spot, but notice the trend of how quickly people sort of accelerate in their economy and where that sort of hockey stick delta starts to kick in. And one of the key strategies here is the Klingon Empire. They over-indexed on building exploration ships. You'll notice it's interesting, the difference. So the Klingons built a lot of ships and started expanding, really over-indexed on exploration right off the bat. And you can see there in turn 16, the really hockey stick jump as they started to discover more and more resources. And the interesting thing about that is that after they get to a certain point, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a positive feedback loop. As they have more money, they can buy more ships, which allows them to explore more territory and discover more resources, which allows them to build more ships, and so on and so on and so on. And so really the Klingons are somewhat unique at this point in that they've hit that curve, in the sense that they are exploring. Their income is allowing them to explore to a degree that almost no other faction can do. And you can see the Carnivons have a similar trajectory just a little bit later in the graph. You can see just after turn 31, there's that point where they just hockey stick jumped and took off. The Federation, while they were an early successor, they kind of plateaued for a bit, and then they slowly started to progress, probably employing the same tactic. Whereas all the other cadre of players in that lower tier, all fighting in the 50s, you might say, they didn't do this same tactic, and you can see that in the map when we get there, as far as the amount of territory they have, their footprint. And to be fair, a good chunk of this is also luck, in the sense of the density of the resources that you find. The Carnivon, for whatever reason, are lucky enough that they have a very tight, compact, and high density of resources relative to their footprint. The Kzinti also fit into this as well. Whereas some other factions, the Borak specifically, for whatever reason, in that sort of first tier of exploration, weren't on the lucky side of resource discovery. So that's what that looks like there. But let's not digress. Let's move on to what you're all here for to see. Let's get ourselves to the map. All right, so I'm going to zoom out in a big way here. Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more time. And that's as far out as I can go. So this gives you just a sense of where everybody sort of is on the map. And I'll scroll down as we go. So you can see the Klingons harder to see. They're in the top left corner of the map, and they are that big gray area here. Followed by the Carnivon in green. Again, pretty big footprint. And over in the top right corner, you've got the ISC. Yellow and black is their color. Then you've got the lima bean formation of the Lyrans here in the sort of middle of the pack. And if you go to their immediate right, you'll see baby blue with yellow, and that is the Borak. You go down to the left, you'll see the white and black. That is the Kzinti, the space tigers. And then if you go to the right of them, you will see there are boys in blue, the Federation, bringing peace to the galaxy. And as we scroll down here, you will see in the bottom left, we've got the Tholian Empire. In the middle here, you'll notice a couple of little red and yellow resources discovered. And this is where our Paravian player is, although they have not revealed themselves as of yet. And then in the bottom right, we've got the slippery Hydrons making their way out from the corner. So that's what our big picture map looks like. And as you can see, there's, kind of a clear distribution. 3 at the top, 2, 2, and 3 at the bottom. And that sort of gives us a big picture of where things are at. Let's scroll in, or zoom in, I should say, and go to the bottom right. I'll move my head because it is very much in the way. Let's go to the bottom right of the map and check in with our Hydran friends. And before we sort of dive into the empires, let's do a quick summary of fleet cap. Fleet cap, as a reminder, is the measurement of our number of ships and the potential firepower and maintenance that those units require. So, at the top of the list here is the Borak with a total of 29 ships. That's going to be one of the lowest numbers on this chart. So we've got the Borak at 29 with a total attack factor of 79, 169 defense. What's interesting to note about this, if you look at the fleet cap is a measure of essentially all the defense factors. So at 173 to 169, when you see a delta or a difference there, that typically indicates that there are some crippled ships in the fleet. So there are some crippled ships in the Borak fleet as of this moment. The Carnivon, next on our list here, are 82 total ships in their fleet, so almost 3 times. Almost 3 times the size of the Borak fleet. And that matches to their attack factors. You can see they are over double the attack factors of the Borak at 180, 346 defense factors, and of course their fleet cap is 352. And you can notice that delta difference. There are probably some crippled ships in there. The Federation, somewhere in the middle there, they've got 56 total ships in their fleet with 116 attack, 218 defense, fleet cap 220. The Gorn. Jeez Louise. So the Gorn in this game are predominantly a minor faction. You will see a bunch of these popping up. In fact, when we look at the Hydrans, you can see on the far east of their map, you've got a Gorn faction right there. So these are the culmination of all the Gorn factions on the map, and you can see they've got a total of 123 ships. Dwarfing. Collectively dwarfing any and all of the player factions. So that's interesting. The Hydrans, speaking of, our green guys, are 47 total ships in their fleet. So again, somewhere in the middle. And they have 103 total attack factors, 208 defense, and 209 fleet cap. So maybe there's a crippled ship in there somewhere. Who knows? The ISC, our guys in the top right of the map, they are at 31 total ships. So very much in the ballpark of the Borak. Interesting to note, they have 68 total attack factors, 147 defense, and a fleet cap of 155. So there's a couple of cripples, or maybe 1 or 2 in there. The Kzinti, our space tigers, have 35 total ships. So again, these are the factions that are in that lowest band of players, like the 60% of players. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, a coffee has been fired from the Barbarian Raiders. The Barbarian Raiders have fired a coffee in our general direction. So I will take a sip of stimulating, motivating, and elixir of life coffee here to keep us going on track. Ooh, yes. Oh, yeah. A little AMR there for you. As you can see, our goal for today, as you will notice that green bar on the bottom of the screen as it moves to the right, our goal is 5. In the spirit of turn 55, 5, 5, and 5 coffees is our goal for today. So we are 20% towards our goal of 5 coffees for today. All right, let's carry on where we were. We had the ISC. Did we do the Klingons? No. Yes. Klingons. 67 total ships. 67 total ships with the Klingons, our ridged friends, in the top left corner of the map, opposite of the ISC. They are 67 total ships, much closer to our Carnivon friends, but certainly not quite in the same ballpark. 67 total ships. They have 168 attack, 318 defense, with a fleet cap of 319. Back to our Space Tigers, 35 total ships, again in that bottom band of folks. They have 82 total attack, 151 attack, fleet cap 152. The Lyrans, our lima bean Lyrans in the middle of the map, they also have in that same band 40 total ships, in their fleet, and they have a total attack factor of 88, 200 defense, and a fleet cap of 206. We have the Paravians, which are still a mystery, so we don't really know where they're at when it comes to their total number of ships and so on. Next on our list, sort of as a player faction, and I really think our last, is Reman's non-player faction, Romulan non-player faction, and the Tholians, our last folks on the list, have a total of 59 ships in circulation, 103 attack, 277 defense, and of course fleet cap that matches that. So interesting about the Tholians, they are, by far, they have the worst ships at this stage of the game, yet you will note nearly 60 ships in their fleet and over 100 on their attack factor. That's pretty good, especially when you consider factions like the Borak have half that number of ships and they have nearly 80. So, 4/5 of their total attack factor with half the number of ships. That gives you sort of an indication of the offensive capability of Tholian ships on a one-on-one basis. So what do we know? What does this tell us, this fleet cap summary? Long story short, the bottom band on the economy scale, they're all in the same ballpark. They all have the same number of ships, give or take. Different mixes of ships possibly, but give or take the same sort of caliber of ships. The total attack factors are in the same ballpark as well. Borak are at nearly 80. The Kzinti and the Lyrans, by example, again in that 80 band. The ISC just below that at 68. The Hydrans on the upper end of that at 103, and so they're all in the same ballpark. But the real big kicker is the Carnivon. The Carnivon, with 82 total ships in their fleet, puts them nearly 3 times the lowest number, Borak, on this list, and almost double for some of those folks in that middle band when they're with their total number of ships. They are by far the most powerful military from a player faction perspective, and they are, it doesn't seem at this point that anyone is truly competitive with them when it comes to the fleet or the size of their fleet. It'll be interesting to see if and when a combat or war occurs with the Carnivon and what that will look like as we go forward. So let's digress and go into the Hydran player. Okay, let's take away the ships and the bases real quick, just so you can get an impression of where all their stuff is. You can see the mix here of resources in various sort of arms and spiral discovery arms there. You've got an unclaimed resource in the bottom left corner. This is most likely due to a supply issue. We'll bring back the bases here in a moment, and that'll illustrate that for us. You can see that there is a trade route. We've already talked about this with the Reman faction at the bottom of their map, and then in the top right, you will see that there is a Gorn faction, and this is quite normal for the Gorn in this particular game. All the Gorn seem to show up unfriendly and just in a grumpy mood. They just start off unfriendly with everybody, mostly because we stumble into them by discovering their hex and they're pissed off that we violated their territory, and they start off unfriendly. So anyway, that's what that looks like. So let's bring back their bases and we can get a sense of what their supply network kind of looks like. For a quick and simple Hydran, here we are. Hydran supply menu, we're going to set the supply at 3. So this is the overlay of what their supply looks like currently. You will see that they're based on the bases as they're distributed. This is their coverage. And yet, strangely enough, there's this one resource here that is not claimed I'm very curious to see when we bring back the ships what's going on. You can see that we have 2 YBSs completed in 93 spring, which is this turn, and 93 fall, the next turn. They've got a base here on the corner about to be completed. As we zoom out ever so slightly, the big thing to note here when it comes to the exploration pattern of the Hydrons is a very clear preference to this northwesterly expansion. You can see that they're pushing hard, at least it would seem, they're pushing hard to the west to perhaps bump into the Paravians. And we've talked about previously what this might look like as far as when they might bump into them, which based on the current sort of estimates is probably going to be somewhere around that double Romeo Sierra line right at the edge of their supply. That's my guess. Ballpark, we'll see. And then, of course, as they're pushing north, as we scroll up here, you can see that they've got an arm of exploration really pushing up north here, and they will continue probably to build bases and really sort of take in this backfield here that the Federation has not. Let's bring back their ships real quick, and you can see, interestingly, most of these fleets are exploration fleets. So, for example, Xeon, Zinc, Third, and Iridium. Let's just take a quick look. Let's look at Xenon as an example. Metal fleets, maybe? No, that'll be shiny fleets, I'm going to guess. Let's try shiny. Oh, no, that's Okay, got it. Here we go. Noble fleets. There we go. I gotta say, I do find the naming scheme for the Hydrons to be just so much fun. Xenon fleet, here we are. So we've got a W-era command cruiser with a prime team and an escort doing rough around exploration. You can see that's in the bottom corner here. Then we've got Zinc fleet. So Zinc will be here. There we are. So Zinc fleet, that's the second list here. We got a large exploration freighter with an escort DD. That's doing that exploration there. Third fleet, not on our list here. Let's pull up third fleet just as an example. And you can also see here another command cruiser conducting exploration with a DD as escort. So there is a mix here from the Hydrons, as you can see with these with the combination of these fleets. Look in the far right fleet box here. You can see small exploration freighter, 2 of those, then a survey ship, large exploration freighter, survey ship. So they're definitely using those in the middle fleet box here. You can see more survey ships, and then starting to use cruisers with prime teams embarked. Without going into too much detail, when you take a prime team and you put it on a cruiser hull or a size class 3 hull or better, it has the same possibility, basically a 50-50 chance of exploring territory as a survey ship all on its own without a prime team embarked. The next class up was if you took a dreadnought, so a size class 4 ship, and you put a prime team on that, it's the equivalent of a survey ship with a prime team. So dreadnoughts effectively do the same job as a survey ship with a prime team, and it's pretty good. So the Hydrons are employing this tactic of basically trying to put more lines in the water with more chances of catching some fish. And that is a strategy you will see in other parts of the map as we go on. So let's zoom back in. Boop. And we'll take away let's try that again. And we'll take away the supply menu so that we can have a little bit of a clearer look at what we're doing. Okay. So that is the Hydrons. Now I see there's some chatter in the chat. Let's slide back and discuss that. All right, everybody. Okay, so what do I see here in the chitter chat? After the photon of coffee goodness has been fired, what do we see? We see Bill Smith. Dang you, Daniel. Big Slow Target says, watch out that supply. It often shows colonies as providing supply, and they do not. So this is a change in the rules from the past iteration of this game to this iteration. And as you know, we are inspired by the rules of Federation and Empire, which means that's sort of our template. But as this is a 4X sort of like house rules kind of game, we are taking a number of those rules and adapting them as we go. So in previous iterations of this game, colonies acted like planets as a supply node or a supply point. And if you're wondering about supply, check out the tutorial list. There is a tutorial about supply. So they acted like a planet in that way, providing supply and range and so on. But we changed the rules going forward so that colonies don't provide supply. Now, what does that mean from the module perspective, like the vassal map that you see? From a technical perspective, there are two different counters, one for a colony that doesn't provide supply, and one as a leftover from the past game where it does provide supply, and it scales. You can turn it into a developing planet, a minor planet, and so on and so on. So it's just about using the right counter, and sometimes the wrong counter is used, and it sort of distracts from that supply. But as players, we know that colonies don't provide supply, and that bases and planets do. So we just have to sort of double check, trust but verify, you might say, on that little note there. You can't be petty. Watch out. They're Gorn to get you. What? Watch out. They're Gorn to get you. They're going to get you. Oh my goodness. Goodness, petty. God. Incidentally, You Can't Be Petty, for those who are watching at home, is playing the Gorn in one of our other campaigns. A big slow target response. You can see it on the Hydron map. Right click and select toggle to supply to turn it off. Okay. Daniel says, noble fleets are named after noble gases. Yep, I get that. It's my poor education. It just doesn't click in right away. Big slow target. Hey, Bill. Excuse me as I'm catching myself. Let me take a quick sip of our sweet caffeinated goodness to lubricate my larynx and get us ready to talk about the the guys in red, our Tholian friends, as we go. Here, one sip. Oh, that's good. Okay, and now the Tholians. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Tholian Empire. Let's just take away the ships and bases so we can get a quick appreciation of what we're looking at. I'm going to zoom out one so you can get a better look. So you can see here, the Tholians, they are in a very unique position. One, you can see that they're sort of tucked away in the corner. They've got lots of room between them and their neighbors, but their density of resources isn't overly high. As we know, the Tholians are the lowest on the economic ladder at the moment. That is by no means a sign that they're somehow going to lose the game. We've seen that in previous games. Folks that are in the rear position for various reasons end up taking the lead spot. So that's not something that is a telling of their future success or failure. So as we look here, you can see a couple of keynotes. One, they've got a Riemann minor faction in the bottom corner here. And you can see that there was the planet of Quark, which we've talked about before, that has been conquered. They are hateful for their Tholian oppressors, and that's where they're at right now. So not very happy for sure. But that can be changed with a diplomat or two. Send a diplomat over there and perform a mission that's available for them, and they can improve planetary attitude, and that will help. So that's what's going on there. You can see here, of course, not a lot of planets, a couple minor planets here, but not a lot of planetary growth potential for them because of their distribution. But they do have a lot of wormholes, which is interesting. You've got this Juliet wormhole on the far west, which has just popped up, and the Echo wormhole right there. So lots of wormholes, and of course you can see some other ones sort of in the gray of space there. So very interesting to see that. Let's bring back their bases real quick. And you can see this is sort of probably the weakest point of the Tholian position. They have very few bases overall, like YBSs and YDKs, but and so it restricts their ability to expand. But that being said, they have, as you can see here, a YDK in the north. They've built bases out to the east, and so they're doing what they can with what they have to be able to really push out their exploration. If I would offer one piece of advice for a Tholian player, the planet of Hence here is an independent planet. Indifferent minor planet, but it is a supply node. Leverage that ASAP and just explore as much as you can this corner. And as I pull back the ships, you can see here that there is some exploration happening. Fourth Fleet and this survey freighter is sort of in this in this neck of the woods doing exactly that. In addition, you can see they're really pushing where they do have supply, and you can see this YBS. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so we have a convoy here, and we have a third fleet 4 hexes away from this YBS. So one of the things this makes me think of is, as a question, do the Tholians already have supply 4? It's a technology that could be discovered right about now. In fact, it's very likely that it could be, depending on events that may have occurred. But if they have supply 4, that would be a distinct advantage over some of their other player factions that don't have that same capability. Supply 4 obviously gives you 4 hexes of supply from any supply node, and that would be a real advantage for them at this point. So maybe, based on the success of this, they've done that. However, the convoy can provide extended supply, and that may be what's happening here. We'll have to see. Does this convoy start building a base, in which case, and the survey ship continues to do survey at range 4? If that's the case, we know they have supply 4. Interesting to note. But other than that, we see that the Tholians have a lot of exploration activity going on the fringes. And really for the Tholians, it's a combination. It's a challenge that they have to be able to build out logistics, i.e. bases, to facilitate more exploration and then get more ships out there to do exploration. I would argue, perhaps, for the Tholians, as part of maybe getting the best ROI and flexibility in their fleet composition, build those cruisers, man. Build cruisers, pop them with prime teams, and get them out there. Survey ships, at this point, they don't have them. They can only use exploration freighters. And so at this point, their best way to leverage, because they don't have a survey ship at this point in the game, their best point of leverage is probably to be able to either A, build cruisers and put prime teams on them, or what they've done, which is they put their tug unit, which is 3 of these CPCs together, CPC just being a kind of patrol craft, and then they can use that as a tug to tow large freighters along and get them where they need to go a little faster. Like I say, I would recommend the cruiser approach because with neighbors relatively close, that could be a more flexible option. We'll see. But 2 other things to note here. Like I said, the Echo and the Juliet wormhole, you can see that the Klingons have come through the Juliet wormhole, and they are on the fringes of Tholian space. And, of course, the Echo wormhole. Now, I don't know where the Echo wormhole comes out. We'll have to see if anyone's transited it and where that goes. But also, we can see, based on the data sharing of the ISC, that the Paravians are on the eastern edge of Tholian space. And not only that, but there are 2 wormholes in close proximity. I don't know where the Foxtrot wormhole comes from. I'm assuming it's in ISC space based on this YFF. And the Delta wormhole is in Borak space. We'll talk about that later. But this is definitely an important indicator for an important consideration for the Tholians. This proliferation of wormholes around them, how can they access them, leverage them, use them, or what does that do as far as risk for them? Different sort of ways that other players can sort of get at them and attack them if that might be the case. We'll have to see how this evolves. But the Tholians are certainly looking very interesting. Interesting chat on the in the discussion here. Let's slide on over there and chat. Chat with the chat. Here we go. All right. Okay, so what did we got here? Shots fired. Big Slow Target says, a lot of YouTube weirdness going on for me at the moment. Tony's audio isn't syncing with video right, and it looks like bad lip sync. Are you all seeing that as well? Please put it in the notes. Bill says the same. Oh, interesting. Okay. I'll have to check that out after the fact. Interesting that my audio isn't syncing. I'm sorry about that. It looks like it is on my production side. It looks good. I don't know. I'll have to see. Okay. Let's see here. What do we got? Big slow target, just explore rapidly around this Tholian planet. 4 hexes from a wormhole leading to Klingon homeworld. That would be a choice. Might force hard decisions for the Klingons. Eugene says he is speaking Canadian and it is slow to convert the language filters. Thank you. Really? So you're all seeing this same issue? Well, I unfortunately I can't do anything about that. I'd have to look. I don't know why that's the case. I've got no indication. Everyone's saying that there's a delay in the audio. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. All right. Well, we'll have to explore it after the fact. We'll see. A delay on my side, Petty says. Okay. Well, I do apologize. I will get off my shiny head. And we'll get back to the map so that you can you can talk about or see the good side of me, so to speak. Okay, let's go back and talk about our tigers in space, the Kzinti. Here we go. All right, so here we are with the Kzinti. This is a little bit of a zoomed out picture. And you can see sort of, if I take away the ships and the bases, look at that concentration. I'll put the mic right in front of my mouth so it's less distracting. Is that better? So you can see here that the concentration of all those white resources, that's dense. That's hard. That's compressed. That is for sure. Look at that. Pretty impressive as far as that goes. And you can see here they've got a number of minor factions. You've got the Vudar in orbital at the very top here, and they are friendly. I know it's hard to see that F, but there we go. That's a little bit easier to see the F. And then here we have, Garag, which is a Gorn planet. And they are very much not happy. They're hateful. Hostile, and they are ready to unload, one might say. If we bring back the bases real quick, wow, these guys have a good base network. There is no doubt about it. Every 2 hexes, very strategic or very sort of like, I guess, tactical deployment of these things, mutually supporting bases in a phenomenal way. The compromise, of course, is that it has limited their expansion, which is a challenge. But nonetheless, you can see here the distribution is good. They have good supply, and as we bring back the ships in, interesting to note here, look at the one. Oh. So I wonder if the Kzinti also have supply for. Look at this. So here we have a base. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's a tug here. There's 2 tugs here. Look at that. So one tug could be building a base momentarily, and the other tug is providing extended supply. That would make sense because then you've got this resource here that didn't convert because it's out of fixed supply, which is one of our rules. And Olympus fleet, these guys are doing survey. So it would seem that the Kzinti have 4 supply. Very interesting. And that's a notable, so we have 2 potential factions that have 4 supply already. Very, very interesting. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit and take a look at some of this goodness. So we're going to concentrate right now and today on this area, which is this potential area of conflict between the Federation and the Kzinti. I'm going to start with the Gorn, though, because they could be a spoiler, you might say. We've got Expeditionary Fleet. I'm assuming Expeditionary Fleet. Let's go to the minor factions and pull up our Gorn friends. As I put this in the top corner, you will see here there is quite a bit of... There's a lot going on here. These are all the minor factions in their fleets, so it's a little crazy. So we're looking for Expeditionary Fleet, which is this one here. If I make it a little bit easier to see, it's the bigger one on the bottom there, as I'm trying to... There we go. Oh, and there's... Yeah, okay. So what we see here is that they, in this hex at Garag, we've got a dreadnought, command cruiser, a total of 4 light cruisers, 6 destroyers, 12 frigates, a commando ship, cruiser, a tug, and a convoy. So there's a lot of stuff here. In addition, they have a YDK and 8, count them, 8, baby, planetary ground bases. That's first of all, that's a hard target. Trying to take that is going to be a big hill to climb, but also, seeing as they are hateful, there is the potential for them to do bad things to the Kzinti within range of their planet. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've got Count, Earl, Ally 6, and Home Fleet sitting here. So let's take a quick look at what the Kzinti have in the neighborhood. So we'll start off with Count's fleet. You can see here, Count's fleet is a survey ship with a frigate. So that's not going to do anything. There's Earl fleet. So Kzinti, where'd you go? I had you here. There we are. Kzinti, Earl. There we are. Earl. Oh, okay. So another survey ship with a prime team. Nothing going on there. So those are not combat capable fleets. We've got Ally 6. Let's take a look at that. Ally 6. Alliance 6 fleet. Again, just a survey ship with a prime team. Nothing going on there. And then we've got Home Fleet. I have a feeling this is where the money is. There we go. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this has a DN. It's a decent DN, especially for this time period, 6.8. That's sort of standard. We have 3 command cruisers, 2 frigates, and a crippled frigate. So there was obviously some combat recently in this neck of the woods. Interesting. In addition to what's in Home Fleet, you can see there's also another dreadnought and another command cruiser there, plus a couple frigates. So if we put this all together, there's 4 command cruisers, 2 dreadnoughts, and 3 frigates, which 4, 2, 6, I guess that's a full 10 ship battle line. And of course with heavier ships, which is good, which is interesting. That's yeah, okay, we want to see that. On the Fed side, just by comparison, we have 8th Home and Task Force CostNet. So let's take a look at the Fed side. Federation, Home Fleet. What is a... Oh, okay, interesting. I'm going to put that on the bottom here, closer to home. We're going to put Federation 8th Fleet. We'll put that on top, just so that it's matching. And then Task Force CostNet. There we are. Boom. Okay. So as you can see here, I might as well put in 6th Fleet there as well, just because it's in the vicinity. And here we go. Okay, so I'm trying to map this out so it kind of looks like what's up here. So 8th Fleet. What do we got? We got a survey team, basically. Survey ship with a light cruiser escort and a frigate. Basically, they don't want to get blown up. The bottom one here, which is Home Fleet, this is a little more heavy hitting. You've got a converted ISC dreadnought, which is arguably the best dreadnought in the game at a 7.9, 7 attack, 9 defense, which is 1 point better than on both attack and defense factors, better than what's going on with the Kzinti dreadnought, which is good. They got a command cruiser, a scout, which that's going to give them a little bit of a perk in combat. If they have EW on their side and the other side does not, then it automatically gives them an advantage. You've got 6 light cruisers, which light cruisers are great ships for the Federation. So they've got 6 of them, which is a good 1830. And then, of course, they got 7 frigates. So when you're looking at the disposition, the Feds definitely have a bigger punch on their side. It just depends on how this, if they fight, how this battle would sort of, how it would play out. Dice play a big factor, and also where the combat happens. Is it one player attacking another player's base? That's a big factor. And then also, or is it happening in space or at each other's bases? And what the disposition of the ships are, like how the player chooses to deploy those ships and use them in combat. It'll be very interesting, very interesting. And then, of course, like I say, Task Force CostNet has a couple of frigates that are crippled, and then 6th Fleet in the back end is just an exploration fleet with a bunch of W ships, not really going to be part of that combat. So very interesting to see how this is going. So as a recap for the Kzinti, we've got exploration in the backfield, potential confrontation on their east coast, and then a push, or what seems like a push, in the north to be able to make contact with the Lima Bean Lyrans at the top of the map. All right. Okay. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to slide back to the chat here real quick and see what this looks like. All right, so that's funny. Okay, so Paul says, nope, it's fine here, which is interesting. So he's got good audio on his end. That's good. A delay on my side, Petty says. Blame Canada, Petty says. Daniel says, we didn't get the news report this week. Oh, you are absolutely correct. So I wasn't even thinking about it because of the delay. Okay, let me pull this up. Stand by. Okay, hold on. Okay, so for what is he talking about? So in previous games and in previous live streams, you may have seen that we do the Galactic News. And the Galactic News Roundup is a discussion or like a highlight of what's going on in the galaxy. It's just been so long since we've done it. I just am sort of totally out of practice and not part of my workflow here as we go. So let me... I don't have a default screen, which was in the past production for the news. But let me, I'm trying to think if I can pull in something really quickly here on the fly to be able to give you the galactic news. Okay, hold on. I'm going to pull this into this window so I can read it. Hold on. The joys of doing things live. It's always exciting and makes for a great... I'm just opening up something here to be able to cut and paste it. And anytime you're ready, computer. There we go. Okay, so. And paste. All right. Okay, well, we'll just have to go with the flow here. All right. So, but I don't have any music. And I can't pull anything on it. Okay, so here we go. So this is an ad hoc reading of the Galactic News, Spring 192 edition. Intergalactic war. For the first time in recorded history, two major galactic powers are going to war. The Federation put forth a press release stating their grievances with the Kzinti and have declared their intention to bring them to task. Now that the Vulcans have voiced their vendetta, will they violently and viciously violate the vermin who vex them? Stay tuned to find out. Commerce among comrades. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Klingon and Carnivon empires are exploring a more peaceful approach. After years of plotting safe civilian warp routes, the first major trade route between galactic powers has been established. Our economic analysts believe that this will bring significant prosperity to both participants, as well as a risk of increased piracy now that trade lanes are more predictable. Mutiny on the Villeneuve. Troubled times in Starfleet. The frigate, USS Villeneuve, was reported to have mutinied and abandoned its post in the Federation home fleet. The reasons for this ship's mutiny are still being investigated, but it is known that the ship joined up with pirates on the Kzinti Federation border. Federation forces were quick to hunt down and destroy the hidden pirate base, but the mutinous ship fled the scene and is now certainly being outfitted with stealth equipment and a hot tub for the local pirate lord. Raiders on the rise. All over the galaxy, strange raider ships have been creeping in from the fringes. Each ship seems to be of a different custom design, and each seems to utilize different technologies in battle, as if they were test beds for prototype weaponry. Our reporters have been unable to get detailed reports from military personnel as of yet. But rumors abound that some of the technology demonstrated by these raiders is beyond that of any known galactic power. Dun dun dun. Wandering wormholes. In Klingon space, a long-established wormhole seems to have jumped several parsecs away from its known location. Whether this is due to some natural phenomenon or a new Klingon wormhole pool cue has yet to be determined. GNN's reporters won't stop, till we discover the truth behind this frightening possibility. And that is your galactic news. All right. So, what do you think? I love that Daniel, our GM, writes up his galactic news with so much alliteration, tongue-twisting text, and it's just a delight to be able to provide that discourse to you. Good times all the way around. All right. Speaking of the Federation, let's take a moment now and slide on over to our Fed counterpart, and we can talk about what's going on their neck of. Oh, before I go any further, I see the chat. I wanted to talk about that real quick. Eugene says, thumbs up for the Galactic News, the Gore News Network, but thumbs up from the 14 watching. That's right, double digits. Here we go. Let me know at this point in the broadcast at 50 minutes and 30 seconds, are you still seeing the delay in my audio? We've established that across the pond in the UK they are not, and for some reason in North America they are. So quick little yes or no. Are you seeing delay? Yes. Are you seeing delay? No. In the chat. Very helpful. Thank you so much. All right, let's slide back to our Federation friends on the map. All right. As you can see, our boys in blue are back at it. Let's zoom out here a little bit, and we can see that we have three factions, minor factions that are on the fringes of Federation space. The Entropia Voodar faction is very unhappy with the Federation. This could be that they are starting to throw their weight around and they just don't like it. On the other hand, in addition to, the Romulan faction in the bottom of the map, right above that logo there, is hateful towards our good friends. Actually, is that a Reman? I think that's a Reman faction. Yes, Reman, Romulan? No, Romulan. It's a solid black circle, so that's a Romulan faction. Yes, they are hateful, hostile, not liking what the Federation are doing. And sort of off-brand, the Gorn are indifferent. That's very strange. But nonetheless, it would seem that instead of making friends, the Federation are stirring the pot and making enemies. The Vulcans, their pointy-eared, arrogant attitudes seem to be pissing everybody off. Not only with the Kzinti, I mean, if a cat doesn't like you, I don't know what that says about you. I'm more of a dog person myself. But the Entropia and, how do I pronounce that? Halickanarsis? Anyways, the Romulan and the Voodar factions are very much not enjoying what the Federation is doing. And apparently their neighbors aren't either. So yes, delay continues. Ugh. God, that sucks. Okay, well, we'll have to see the recording afterwards and see if that continues. My apologies. I'm getting the stream's current bitrate is 2830, is lower than the recommended bitrate. So I guess I'm going to have to make some adjustments about bitrate perhaps in the future. All right. So let's see here. Well, let's bring back the bases and we can see the supply. So the Federation seems to have a good supply network rolling in various directions, as you can see here. Particularly focus on the south, the north, and of course their western border. You can see on the western border they have a YDK and another YBS being built there. So they're trying to double up their basically what looks like their repair capacity to facilitate a full-on conflict with the Kzinti. Blood has been spilled and war has been declared, so it would seem as though it's on like Donkey Kong. Of course, we got a YBS up in the corner here that's all by itself, but there doesn't seem to be really, anybody in the neck of the woods that could interfere, stop, or, target that particular place, unless somehow this space gets explored and the Gorn decide to reach out and pound some blue. I'm not sure if the Gorn are necessarily upset with the Federation, or at least the folks at Garag are. They're certainly upset with the Kzinti. Maybe that's a point that can be levered. We shall see. All right. Let's bring back the ships. And Okay, so a couple things here. One, we've already talked about the ships on the border. Let's focus more on what's going on here. So as I go up north, we can see two things. One, the Federation are continuing to build bases and explore and expand up in towards the Lima Bean direction. Lyran Lima Bean. And you can see on the far right side, or the northeast of their empire, they do not have good, they don't have bases being built here to be able to facilitate northern exploration. They have perhaps the Gorn in the way. I'm not sure if that's an impediment or not, but nonetheless, that's going on there. What they do have, though, is a number of these raiders, as was mentioned in the news, slipping into the area. So we've got these 2 raiders here, and of course, these guys have been lingering for some time in Federation space. So we've got more than one concentration of these raiders showing up in Federation space. I wonder why. Is it just random, or is there something that's attracting them to the Federation? Is there something the Federation is doing that's drawing their attention? Very, very interesting. Of course, in addition to this, you've got another YDN from the ISC that has been seemingly sold to the Federation, and it would seem they are going to convert it. And as well, there's Order Fleet. Look at this. Let's look at the ISC Order Fleet. Named fleets. Order. Oh, so a light cruiser with a diplomat, so it just looks like they're bringing a diplomat over. But nonetheless, obviously some very significant trade going back and forth between these folks. So lots of exchange between the Federation, the ISC, and perhaps a little phaser fire or disruptors, as the case may be, drones back and forth between the Kzinti and the Federation. Paul says the Kzinti made peaceful contact, wasn't expecting in meeting the Terran Federation, though. Okay. So, according to the Space Tigers, they reached out in peace. What did the Federation do? Dun, dun, dun. Who knows? Interesting. All right. Let's take a moment and let's talk about the Borak. The other boys in blue on this map. The ones that are blue and yellow, sort of contrasting colors there. Not too much to talk about with the Borak. I know as the Borak player, it's all exciting. But let's talk about the sort of the 3 big things that are going on. 1, you can see that there is a concerted effort to be able to explore to the south and really just make contact with the Federation. So we'll head down south, make contact with the Feds, and see how that goes. After all, the boys in blue got a band together. You know what I mean? On the northeasterly front, you can see up here that we are on the cusp of making contact with the ISC. Will that be a friendly encounter, or will it be more fires of foes? We shall have to see. Generally speaking, so far the communication between us has been good. We haven't established anything as of yet, but we shall see shortly whether we play nice together or whether there is something else that will be going on. I would imagine that if for whatever reason violence takes hold, neither one of us have a lot of stuff in the area, so it'll be interesting to see how that sort of takes place. But I'm sure that cooler heads will prevail. After all, we share a common color, yellow. I'm sure we can get along. And then the focal point, as you can see here, is the concentration of craziness that is this blue blob that's just gone nuts. So previously we had White Dragon, which was the fleet that had the concentration of ships, and they were attacking and took the planet of Gruyere here, which was a Gorn planet, as sort of a test bed for our ground assault operations. Incredible success, very good to be able to go through that combat. And it occurs to me we have not discussed ground combat. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see a pre-recorded video discussing the rules around ground assaults and ground or G-factor combat in Federation Empire, or would you rather just walk through a combat on the live stream? Pre-recorded video, or would you like live stream? So PR in the comments for pre-recorded, or L for live stream. You let me know. Or something else. Feel free to put something else in there if it's something tickles your fancy. But as you can see, the Borak are blobbing out their exploration. And what's going on here? Well, there's 2 distinct things that are occurring. 1, you'll notice here in the top right corner of Lyran space, there are 2 Romulan factions and a Gorn. Well, the Borak, have made great relations with the Romulan faction in this neck of the woods. We have established a trade route, and all good things come to those who trade with Romulans. So what are we trying to do? Well, we're going to establish a trade route between us and the first and home here, which is, I keep not being able to read the names because these little markers get in the way. Lucanius and Romulus are the two planets here with the Romulan factions. So we're going to explore this little territory here and establish trade between these Romulan factions and the Borak Empire. In addition, because it's so close, we're going to try and do the same thing with the Gorn here as well, as they are not hateful or hostile in any way, whereas some of the other Gorn in our neck of the woods are. So if we can establish good trade between the Romulans and the Gorn, that would be fantastic. And then once the Lyrans have a trade hub or like a YDK in this area, then we can establish a trade route with that YDK as well, which will be fantastic. But the Lyrans aren't the only ones with Romulans in their midst. No, look at this. The Carnies also have a good Romulan contingent up within close proximity to our soon-to-be-discovered border. So we are working towards being able to get a straight line between us and this Romulan planet so we can establish a trade route there. And look at that. There happens to be a planet right here where we can also establish a trade route with them. So once we have the space discovered and we have our bases built, then we can have an established trade route between us and this Romulan faction, and of course the Carnivon as well. As I mentioned, the Borak are the commercially corporate focused entity. It's all about economic growth and building mutually beneficial relationships with everyone we encounter, and that's sort of the game plan. And based on the distribution of ships here at the moment, anyway, it would seem that and our communication thus far, things are looking relatively good between us and the Carnies. Of course, with them having the largest fleet in the game by far, there's always a little concern that things could go the wrong direction. But at the moment, I'm sure things will be wonderful, knock on wood, as we go forward. I'm curious. I'm getting a notification on YouTube that the connection before was quote unquote good. Now the connection is excellent. So I'm curious if that delay has gone away. We shall see. Oh, okay. So interesting note. Before I go any further, I'm going to slide to the comments so we can discuss this little note that Daniel has put in the chat. All right, so here we can see that a couple things. Let's go to Big Slow Target. Nothing to talk about with the Borak? ? Giant fleet push northwest is nothing. Well, as I said, we're just exploring. Eugene can afford CAs but not prime teams to put on them to help exploration ? Or is this something else? Interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. Trade between empires must be between YDKs or homeworlds. Okay, so basically we got to get the YDK built, and I'm sure we'll figure out something with our good Carnivon friends that we can have a YDK in close proximity to our trade network so we can make that trade happen. But duly noted, YDKs and or the homeworld are the only points of contact to establish a trade route. So we got to have a YDK on that border for our Carnivon friends. All right. So the question that Eugene asks, all those CAs but no prime teams, my friend, and all of us, all of the wonderful viewers out there, only got so much money. And as we've discussed, the Borak are in the bottom tier of income. And if we're building bases to facilitate exploration, the balance is, how do you afford what? I can only build one prime team per turn. And based on the current expenditures and what I'm spending money on, the best I can do, I have to build the cruisers because, of course, as I mentioned in the past, Borak frigates and destroyers suck. So the cruisers are the sort of the best investment, the best ROI for money spent for ships. So we're building cruisers, and of course, cruisers are halfway decent at exploring. Granted, no prime team embarked, but it's better to sort of throw all these lines in the water and see what I can potentially pick up, as opposed to just doing exploration freighters. And so far that's worked as a good, reasonable strategy. But you're right, to be able to pair them with prime teams would be ideal. Prime teams cost 3 EP to build, and I can only build 1 per turn, and so that is a constraint that I'm currently dealing with. We'll have to see how this progresses going forward, and how much or how little I can apply more prime teams to that component. And then addressing big slow targets, big push of cruisers in the corner. So, for example, one of the things that's happened between the Borak and its neighbors is we reach out and contact them, and at the moment there isn't necessarily an appetite for border discussions, and I totally understand. It's sort of we're a little bit ahead of the game, or getting ahead of ourselves. Thank you. When it comes to that, because after all, once you bump into your neighbor, maybe then you want to decide, where your borders are. So the discussion around where that line is going to be at the moment is something that we're all sort of agreeing is something that we'll discuss at a bit of a later date. But the Borak are all about mutual benefits. So if we can establish those things early to reduce conflict, that's great. But I can totally understand if the other players don't want to do it that way, because they want to see how far they can push exploration before that happens. And I totally understand that. So in that vein, in this area, this northwestern area, that big blob, it's a closest point of approach or contact with the Lyrans and the Carnivon. So the more we can explore and sort of establish ourselves in those territories or those sectors, then it makes it easier for discovering, or rather discussing, the border issues going forward. And again, for us, from the Borak perspective, it's about contact and trade. And so based on the positioning, and I'll go back to the map here in a second, but based on the positioning, that blob is more important because it becomes a hub of contact between all these Romulan factions. There's the one in the Carnivon space, which is about 4 hexes away from my current explored area. And then, of course, the one in Lyran space, or on the edge of the Lyran border, because, again, it's so close. So it's all about establishing those trade routes. And if we can build YDKs and establish those trade routes, away we go. And the constraint between the player factions versus the non-player factions. The non-player factions, the Romulans and the Gorn, all have YDKs on their home bases or on their planets. And so as soon as I establish a YDK, I can establish trade between them. Both the Lyrans and the Carnivons don't have YDKs in that area as of yet, and so we can't as easily establish trade. It just takes much longer. So the sooner they can get YDKs up in those areas, the better, and then we can establish trade as long as there's 4 hexes between our YDKs. All right. So hopefully that helps. Let's slide back. We will talk about the Lyrans next because, those Lyrans have, the Lima Bean Lyrans have some very interesting things on the horizon. Let's slide over. Interesting. Okay, so here we have the Lima Bean Lyrans. And of course, I keep saying the Lima Bean Lyrans because the shape of their territory is very sort of Lima Bean-esque. Let's pull away the ships and the bases so we can see what's going on. All right, so as before, we can see that there is a trade route established between the Lyran homeworld and the Gorn. Great. We can see the distribution of resources. They, like the Borak, suffer from this lack of concentration of resources. For them, it's beneficial that it's very spread out, but they just don't. There's a lot of blank space there, and the Borak have the same problem. So it's really just luck, in the sense of bad luck, that we've experienced, both the Lyrans and the Borak, as opposed to some other factions who have highly concentrated areas of resource. But that's what's going on here. All right, so and you can see here there's an interesting combination of. I see a lot of colonies. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colonies. Not a lot of planets, which is interesting. So we've got developing planet here, Abattoir is a planet that was recently conquered, and you can see they're unhappy. But not a lot of other planets, which is interesting and interesting to note. We bring back the bases. This again is one of the weaknesses of the Lyrans, is they don't have a strong base network. We can see that they do have some 2-hex base structures here, pushing to the west, a little bit to the north, and a little bit to the east. But they've really kind of pushed out the 3-hex base structure here, and it's sort of in a without. It seems there's not a lot of strategic planning on where to put them. That being said, they look as though they're facilitating exploration at this point, just not positioned in a way that's sort of mutually supportive, which is fine if that's what you want. And of course, you got to do what you can with what you got, in the sense of you only got so much money, you can only build so many things. You got to do what you got to do. So distributing their bases the way they are. Let's bring back the ships, and what do we see here? Well, we can see a big push of exploration down in the south, trying to make contact with the feds down here. Very important to note. We can see some pushing towards the north with survey ships and exploration freighters. Again, really good. One thing we are noticing, nothing really to the east and nothing really to the west. I mean, there is an exploration ship here, but there's not a lot of activity on the west, just pushing north and south in these two locations, which is interesting to note. A challenge for the Lyrans is the arrival of more of these raiders. So we've got a battle cruiser here with a 5 attack and defense, and then we've got I don't know what we would call this. It's a small ship, an auxiliary cruiser maybe, with a 2 attack. So more harassing than anything else, but definitely this battle cruiser, I imagine, is impairing the resource here from being accessed. And then, of course, we got tow beans here, which is this Carnivon ship. I'm not sure. I'm assuming this is the ship that came from the Hydrons, because somehow the Hydrons and the Carnivon at one point had a wormhole between them, and then it went sideways. I'm not sure. But anyways, that's what's going on here. Very interesting. Lots of crippled ships you can see here, or at least a fair number of crippled ships. Probably still recovering from that attack on Abattoir, and so on. So the question, I guess, for the Lyrans is you have multiple factions coming in sort of hot and heavy from multiple directions. By example, you've got Klingons pushing hard towards you here based on this sort of exploration wall of ships. You've got certainly the Carnivon coming down hard with their push of ships. You've got the Borak on the edge there, and they've certainly got a big push of ships. So you've got 3 factions coming in hot and heavy. On the south, you've got the Kzinti and the Federation. Now, I'm assuming that there's some good chitter-chatter between the Feds and the Lyrans, because after all, we can see this YFF here, sitting here, and I'm assuming there's some good interaction based on that. But the Kzinti and the Lyrans, I guess you could think about this in 2 ways. One, cats don't typically get along. At least male cats don't typically get along. There's a lot of territorial stuff going on there. So if we're just, playing by type, I would assume that there's going to be some conflict between the Lyrans and the Kzinti. I don't know if there's been any contact between them and how that may have been going well or poorly. We will have to see. But nonetheless, the Lyrans are in a very similar position the Borak are in, which is they're sort of in a nexus point of being in contact with all these different factions. The Lyrans have 5 different factions that are sort of all moving towards them in unison. The Klingons, the Carnivon, the Borak, the Federation, and the Kzinti. On the good side, the Federation and the Kzinti are about to get embroiled in a hot war, so that will most likely suck in some of their resources and reduce the amount that they're expanding and exploring up into their various directions. Not the case between the Klingons and the Carnivon. We just talked about trade being established between them in the galactic news, so that's going to be an influencing factor. And that being said, the Borak are potentially a great, as we've discussed, the Borak are focused on trade, so that's a really good potential ally in the sense of don't have to fight on that front. But again, so many competing interests converging on the Lyrans. What are the Lyrans to do? How will they respond? And what happens next? being that the Lyrans, like the Borak, like the Tholians, like the ISC, are in that bottom tier, like the Hydrans, are in that bottom tier of factions, and that the two biggest factions in the game and the most military dominant factions in the game are just to the north of them and coming in hard from the north. How are they going to respond? How are they going to be able to deal with that? Again, it's going to be something they're going to have to discuss and sort out. How are they going to approach it? Militarily, diplomatically, a combination of the two. Something to think about. Anywho, that is the Lyrans. Okay, let's take a minute, and I'm going to slide back to the chat, and then we're going to round out the top of the map with the Klingons, Carnivons, and ISC in a 1-2-3 punch. But let's jump into the chat real quick and talk about what's next. Here we go. Oh, yeah. All right, so we're going to talk about, in a second here, we're going to go Klingons, Carnivon, and ISC. But before we do that, I just want to ask you all a question. I've got excellent connection on my end. I want to see if the delay is still occurring. Give me a D for delay, or is there a delay? Y for yes or N for no? You let me know as on the chat. But while you're doing that, let me ask you this question. Up until now, we've been doing all these live streams on the different campaigns, and that's sort of the weight of what we're doing. Damn, still the delay. That's grr. I'm gonna have to figure out a way to fix that. I don't know what's causing that. So beyond that, what kind of content do you want to see? Eugene delay, Daniel delay, Paul does not have a delay. Bill has a delay. Bill's okay. Interesting that Paul does not have the delay. So what kind of content do you want to see on this channel? Do you like what we're doing here with these weekly catch-ups with the campaigns? Would you rather see other content? Like, would you rather, instead of doing the live streams, would you rather me focus on perhaps instead of doing a live stream every week, I do pre-recorded content every week around a particular topic related to the game or related to the rules or something else? Would you rather that pre-recorded content be about rules and tutorials? Would you rather it be more creative or summary content? Would you rather it be more narratively driven, like telling stories about what's happening in the game? Because for those of you who aren't playing in the game, one of the key things about this, what you see every week on the live stream is just the war game play-by-play. But in the back end, we have role-playing that's going on, interaction between players and sort of discussions. And so as opposed to a classic war game, which is just like move my units and have my battles, there's personas, there's role-play, there's character and narrative that's being developed in the course of these games. So do you want to see that? And if so, what kind of ways do you want to see that? How would you like to see that portrayed in the content on the channel? Because at the end of the day, we're focused here about developing community content and sort of building the base of players that want to play this game. So if that's something that's something you would like, please let me know in the comments and then go through that. Bill says, go through how carriers, interceptors, PFs, and the various ships and escorts work in the game. That's a big piece. I think we'll go through that maybe. We'll have to parse that up bit by bit, but interestingly enough, we talked about escorts and consorts and the difference between them in the context of ground assaults, and we can certainly talk about that there. Big Slow Target says a battle or two would be nice, maybe a different thing of the week. Well, we talked about that as well. Me and the GMs and I had a discussion about recording certain battles and sort of walking through how certain things happened. So we could certainly do something like that as well. We'll have to see. So what I'm hearing right now is tutorials on maybe some more advanced stuff like carriers and fighters, and then maybe sort of walking through what happens in a particular battle would be good as well. So we'll explore that. We'll see what's going on there. Okay, all right. Let's keep plugging away with those comments, and I will roll into our discussion about the Klingons, the Carnivon, and the ISC. Last thing, Bill says also battle groups, command escorts, admirals, and marine generals, how they work. So yeah, we can dive into that as we go. All right, let's dive into the Klingons, the Carnivons, and the ISC. Here we go. All right. My head is in the way, of course. My head is in the way. Let's slide my head to the other side. Let's talk about the Klingons first. Taking away the bases and the ships, let's just take a quick look at what they got. So I'll scroll down here in a second, but you can see the top end of their territory, very little going on other than this Juliet wormhole, which we heard in the news, decided to relocate because, of course, location, and obviously they didn't like the kitty corner they were on. One thing, of course, you can see here is the trade route, and it's interesting to note the path of the trade route. So as part of our rules, one of the things we've established is when you're establishing a trade route, you have to establish it between, as Daniel had said earlier, Daniel being our GM for this game, they have to be established between either YDKs or starbases. So YDKs just being an early era starbase. So starbases, YDKs, or homeworlds. That's how those connections get made. There is a minimum distance of 4 hexes. So from starting to ending, 4 hexes is a minimum distance between YDKs or the homeworld. Ladies and gentlemen, a photon has been fired. The Captain Skatek of the Klingon Empire, BST. Cheers, big ears, or forehead, contoured forehead, ribbed for his pleasure. Cheers, and let me take a quick lubrication of my larynx. Here we go. It's a little cool, my coffee, that is. Too bad I don't have like a hot plate or something to keep it hot. But yes, stimulated, lubricated, and ready to go. Thank you. I notice we're at 40% of our 100% goal, so 3 more coffees would get us to that magic number. If you're so inclined, tickled the right way, just saying, it'd be nice. Okay, let's roll on. So trade routes. So what ends up happening is once a trade, a commercial convoy, we have early era Y commercial convoys and later era commercial convoys. Once a commercial convoy goes from one of these starbases to another, or starbase to a homeworld, or homeworld to a homeworld, or homeworld to a starbase, then they will establish a trade route. The trade route is a direct line between homeworlds, but must travel between the 2 points that are initially involved in the trade route. So, for example, if a commercial convoy is established, and it can be established at YDK or starbase, and then travels to another YDK or starbase, those 2 starbases have to be, or YDKs have to be involved in the trade route. So the most direct line between the homeworld and the first starbase, then to the second starbase or YDK, and then to the last homeworld will be established as straight a line as possible. And so in this example, as we bring in bases, you can see that there is a YDK here and a YDK here, and that's how that path was determined. So the route that either the convoy took, or the path between these YDKs, and then basically a straight line between those homeworlds and those various YDKs. That's how that was established, if that makes any sense. Okay. All right. Apparently the bit rate is poor again. All right. So let's look at this. We've got at the bottom end here, we have 3 minor factions that are dealing with the Klingons. We can see we have the unfriendly Gorn, we have the super happy Remans, and the indifferent Romulans. So these 3 factions are the current factions still remaining in the in Klingon space. As we bring back bases, we can see that the Gorn have themselves 6 planetary ground bases and a YDK. The Romulans have just 1 planetary ground base, but a YDK. And the Remans, who are super happy, have 2 planetary ground bases and a YBS. You can see the distribution of bases in the area. Very interesting to note this. The Klingons are building a bunch of YDKs here. Why is that? So these YDKs aren't positioned in such a way to establish trade. 1, 2, 3, 4. They could establish trade with the Romulans. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I guess they could establish trade with the Gorn as well. It's sort of a weird dynamic there. But yeah, they could certainly do that. They're 4 hexes apart. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So these two YDKs could establish trade routes between these two factions. That's possible. Interesting. But as I was noting before, they're particularly close to the border area that's moving towards the Lyrans. Now, there's so much space between the Lyrans and the Klingons. It's really not too much to worry about, but it's interesting to note that that's where those YDKs are going versus, let's say, along the border here with the Carnivon. And you can see there's certainly a YBS base infrastructure built, but not a lot of supporting YDKs. The YDK that was built certainly facilitated the trade, but that's pretty much it. Also interesting to note that all the YDKs are on the same sort of diagonal line here. I don't know if that means anything. It's just interesting to note. Let's bring back the ships real quick, and you can see, as was mentioned before, we got a strong push on exploration along this southeastern border, which totally makes sense. And you can see some tugs building a base there that's already built. This one looks like it may build a base shortly. Really pushing this sort of direction. Interesting. Tholian Border Squadron. What's in the Tholian Border Squadron, even though they're nowhere near the Tholian border? Oh, wow. Interesting. So we've got a command cruiser, two cruisers, yeah. And then a total of 12 F4s. Those F4s are such good ships. So 12 of those, 2 cruisers and a command cruiser. That's a good little fleet. And rumor has it that there is some preparation to be able to drop the hammer on Hammer Fleet. Now, let's just take a quick look at Hammer Fleet. Where is the... Come on. There we go. Minor Fleets. Boom. So we talked about Hammer Fleet before. Where is Hammer Fleet? Hammer. There it is. Hammer. All right. So we got a YDN, 2 light cruisers, a commando cruiser, a total of 3 DDs, and 6 frigates. So not the craziest, biggest, baddest fleet in the world, but certainly between their ground bases and the YDK, more than enough to fend off Tholian Border Squadron. The question is, what other stuff do they have in the neck of the woods? The Klingons have South Fleet as well. South Fleet. Ooh, look at that. So we got another 6 F4s. Those F4s are so good. I am a big fan of the F4. Apocalypse Fleet is also in the neighborhood. Let's take a quick look at Apocalypse, Battle Group Apocalypse. Boom. Ooh, so the interesting thing about that, of course, is it's got a Dreadnought C4 and a couple F4s. So if this guy plus these two combine on Hammer Fleet, there's another C4 there. So 2 C4s and I think there's a really good chance they could take it. I think they might suffer some casualties, but I think they could take it. What do you think? Do you think that 2 C4s, a command cruiser, a couple cruisers, so that gives you 5 big ships, plus 18 F4s, do you think that's enough to take out Hammer Fleet and the YDK and planetary ground bases? I think it is, but I think there's going to be quite a few crippled ships, maybe even a couple lost ships in the process. EW advantage will certainly be with the Gorn. It'll be interesting to see how that works. Interesting. Okay, so that is our Klingon friend. Oh, incidentally, Juliet. Is that? I'm just scrolling down. That is that wormhole down there. So the interesting how that wormhole has moved. Probably. I wonder where it started. I can't remember where it started. I want to say it was down here, but it's moved. Yes, it was down here because the R&D team was doing wormhole research. So it's moved up. I'll have to relocate and take advantage of that. All right, let's slide over and take a gander at the boys in green and yellow, the Carnivon. All right, we're going to take away ships and bases real quick so you can get a vanilla look at what's going on here. Good concentration of resources, especially in this little... Like they've got nodes of it, right? They got like a little node here, bigger node up here. It's interesting how that sort of clusters that way. But the Carnivon have really good concentration of resources. Lucky bastards. Again, sort of against type, the Gorn are friendly with the Carnivon. Interesting. Very interesting. Minor planet up here, friendly with the Carnies. The Romulans indifferent, but these are the only two other factions they've got. We know that there has been some, for example, you can see Beam here was attacked and conquered by the Carnivon. They are currently one turn into devastation, but they'll or being annexed, I should say. So they're being annexed. It'll take 10 turns to do that, and then after that there'll be another 4 turns as it recovers. It'll be developing for 4 turns, and then away we go. Interesting. Okay, let's bring the bases back and let's look at their base distribution. So I actually really like what I see here based on what we know about the Carnivon. So it's hard to see a little bit, but if we look at their homeworld, we can see that they've got 2 and then to 3 base networks. So they really pushed the exploration towards the west, and that's good. They made contact with their westerly neighbor, and all things worked out. They've got just enough supply to be able to explore the top end of their territory. That's fine. And then they're focusing, it looks like, their base development in the areas that facilitate their exploration the most. You can see that on the easternmost here. You can see 1, 2, 3, really sort of a 2 hex distribution. Then they push it out to 3, and they're really pushing the exploration out to the ISC. Similarly, down south and towards the Borak and the Lyrans, you can see again this 3 hex distribution, a little more 2-ish in this area, and then 3-ish here. They're really just taking advantage of the exploration. I would argue probably in reaction to and in competition with the Klingon, because the Klingons are doing that and doing it to great effect or success with regards to really pushing their exploration. Because the Klingons by far have the biggest footprint of any other faction in the game, and the Carnivon, although their economy is competitive with the Klingons, they have a much smaller footprint. So arguably more potential to grow, but currently don't have that growth. So it'll be interesting to see how that sort of manifests over the next little while. But they're really sort of making the best use of their bases or base building infrastructure, as they can. All right, let's bring back the ships. Ooh, there's so many ships. Okay, let's just take a quick look at wolf packs because they're all together on their sheet. So the Carney wolf packs. All right. So this is, where am I going to put it? I'm going to put it here. Right. Is that good? Yeah, okay. So let's start with the top and work our way down. So we've got Wolfpack 3 and 4, and they're sort of in this area near the Klingon border, but not sort of like right on top of it. So Wolfpack 3 and 4. So Wolfpack 3 and 4, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's these guys right here. So we've got a DD and 5. Okay, it's just 5 frigates, and then a drone bombardment destroyer and 4 frigates. So not by any means big fleets, but certainly not nothing. They're there to be able to provide a little bit of security, reactionary force. Really, it's just security, which is good. We've got Wolfpack 1 over here on the eastern fringe. And so going back to Wolfpack 1, they've got 2 drone bombardment destroyers, 2 ground or G-factor commando ships, and then they've got a total of 7 frigates, which is good. This was obviously used to be able to take this planet. And so a very effective combat force, and I'm sure there were some cruisers in there somewhere, and they did that, and they did what they did. Commando cruiser here, trying to do a little exploration, probably was part of Wolfpack 1 initially. And then we've got Wolfpack 2 and 5 in the southern area. So 2 is a drone bombardment cruiser or drone bombardment destroyer and 4 frigates. Nothing crazy, just a little security. And then Wolfpack 5 at the very bottom, again, a destroyer with a total of 5 frigates. So nothing big one way or the other. They're just like little sort of supplementary security forces. Totally plausible, reasonable, good way to be able to execute that. In addition, we've got Home Fleet floating around. Let's take a look at Home Fleet. Okay. This is where all the good stuff is. So I will put this in the corner here as well. So we got a total of 6 cruisers, a dreadnought, and 2 drone bombardment cruisers. So why is that important? Well, I'm assuming they're coming back from the attack on this planet here. And this is certainly their big hammer of a fleet. First of all, because they've got a dreadnought, and the dreadnought, it's interesting to note the attack and defense factors of these ships. So the YDN for the Carnivon is a 5.8. Note that the sort of the average is a 6.8. The Klingons, their C7 has a, or was it C7 or 8? I can't remember. Has a 6.8, and the Kzinti had a 6.8. The IC had that 7.9, right? So the YDN for the Carnivon is a slightly less potent ship. Defense factors are good, attack factors not so much. And that translates as well to their cruisers. So their CAs are 3 attack, 6 defense ships. That's not great. However, they do have what's called a heel nipper, and we can do an episode on heel nippers to talk about, because they'll be coming up, I'm sure. Heel nippers are a very effective tool to be able to deliver damage to your enemy. For all intents and purposes, they're like a 1-point mauler for each N that you have in your combat force. There are some requirements around being able to use it and so on, but it is a very potentially effective weapon. And in addition, they have these drone bombardment cruisers. Now, what's interesting about these drone bombardment cruisers is that they are a little bit less on the defense, but they have a better attack factor, and they have 2 drone bombardment points, or like points of damage that they can add. And we can talk about drone bombardment in another episode. Like, I can do a pre-recorded thing on that. But in short, basically, for each battle round that you've got drone bombardment ships in the battle line, or in the battle line, then you can add the drone bombardment factor. So in this case, 2. You can add that to their total attack factor. You just have to pay money every round you're doing it. And so there is a cost to that. So we'll have to see. So yeah, that's that's sort of like, I would say, the advantage of the Carnivon in this game. They have the combination of the heel nipper and the drone bombardment, which does really good stuff. The only challenge with the drone bombardment in this early era, though, is it can only be used against fixed targets. It cannot be used against mobile targets, so like ships. So they're great for base assaults, but not so great for just tackling ships. So one thing we'll talk about it in, and I don't know the answer right off the top of my head, but how do you employ drone bombardment at this lower level of tech when you're having a fleet defend a base? How do you do that? We'll have to figure that out. So what do we know from our analysis at this point from the Carnivon? They're strong. The Carnivon have one of the biggest militaries in the game. As we talked about, their 80-plus ships is almost 3 times the size of the Borak fleet. Their compot, when we're talking about fleet cap, their compot alone, anytime you're ready, is 180. 180. That is like more than twice the total compot of the Borak. It doesn't take into consideration the fact that they have heel nippers as part of their ships, or that there are drone bombardment factors in their units. They have a lot of really good capabilities, and they have the biggest fleet in the game and one of the strongest economies. At the end of the day, the Carnivon are really well positioned. The thing, or I guess the biggest dilemma for the Carnivons going forward, and the choice that they'll have to make, is how do they want to use their strength? How do they want to play sort of the next 10 to 20 turns? Do they want to, and this could be a very interesting dynamic, do they want to establish peaceful relations and sort of secure borders with their neighbors? And then, because it's a war game, eventually someone's going to fight somebody. Are they going to build up an attack against so-and-so, whoever it is? Maybe. Are they going to go all out on somebody as soon as they make contact with them? Maybe. Or are they just going to be like sort of peaceful throughout the whole game, just maintaining high level of defense. Who knows? There's a lot that could happen here. We just don't know. And so, for example, like one of the comments that was made earlier, what's happening with this Borak bubble? Well, I mean, there is a big military force coming down from the north in the Carnivon, and it certainly doesn't hurt to have a strong deterrent in the area to deter any potential fights. And of course encourage, copacetic, nice getting along. We'll have to see how that all works out. But the Carnivon, like I say, are in a great position. Let me slide my head over to the other side and let's finish it off with the ISC. Okay, so what do we got with the ISC? Let's take away their bases and ships real quick, and you can see the distribution. It's really sort of like unlucky. You have this big void of exploration that they've been doing and no return on that investment. They have a very low density of resources to space explored, which is challenging. And of course, their footprint is one of the smallest in the game. Arguably, I think the smallest in the game. If we bring back their bases, that being said, their base infrastructure is really good. Interesting to note this particular little change, though. Look at the base structure up until this point. Up until the Zulu line, we've got basically every 2 hexes, right? And then they go 3. This, I believe, is a change of tactic with the ISC. They realize that they're not expanding quickly enough, and they are forcing themselves to push the boundaries of what they've done before, pushing the edge of their exploration and supply to be able to really push the exploration out and about. That being said, they have 2, not 1, but 2 different wormholes, Hotel and Foxtrot, and we know the Foxtrot comes out in Federation space. Oh, hold on. The Hotel one pops out in Federation space, so we've got that one right here. And then the Foxtrot one, that comes out down near the Paravians as I scroll down and slide over and come down. There we go. There's the Foxtrot one. So 2 wormholes that come out in very interesting locations on different parts of the map. So those 2 wormholes, one is very, very securely plugged with a YDK. And then, of course, you've got the Hotel wormhole up there. As we bring in the ships, you'll note that they've done some, and we've seen this with the Federation, there's been some very strong trade with the Federation. We see they've got an R&D team that has shown up on the ISC homeworld, and they've got a hotel or a hospital ship. So the hospital ship is great because it has a beneficial effect on ground combat. It can reduce casualties, and it can improve the recovery of planets. So maybe we should do an episode about hospital ships. There we go. I like this brainstorming. Hospital ships, how can you use them? What can you use them for? And why would you use them? Interesting. So they've got a hospital ship, so making them perhaps a little bit more effective in their combat. And then, of course, you can see their use of fleets. Now, the majority of their fleets are all exploration fleets. Let's look at, for example, these 2 fleets in close proximity to the Borak. We got 3rd and Integrity fleet, I think. So let's just pull up 3rd right away. And you can see it's a large exploration freighter with an escort frigate. That's one that right there. And then Integrity, anytime you're ready, I see. There we are. Integrity, we'll pull up the named echelons. We'll just put this right here. And Integrity, there you go. Command cruiser with a destroyer. So nothing too crazy, but just a little ship right there. They've got a convoy here, which looks like it's preparing to be able to build a base, because as per their 2 hex distribution, that's what that looks like. They're finishing up building a base over here in the Whiskey column, and they'll be doing that here in the Triple Charlie column as they're getting ready to go. Another interesting thing to note, 1, 2, 3, 4, do the ISC have 4 hex supply, or is this convoy just providing extended supply? We'll find out if and when this starts to build a base, and if and when territory has been explored. Because if they can explore while building the base, they've got 4 supply. If they're just using extended supply, then that would be, then they still have 3 supply. So interesting, sort of like something to think about. I see some chitter chatter in the chat. We'll get back to that in just a moment. And then last thing about the ISC, you will notice there is a raider that's popped into the top of their territory. The raiders are everywhere. The Feds have them. The Lyrans have them. The ISC have them. there's quite a few that are popping their heads up every which way. So, something to think about. Something to think about for all of us. Okay, that is our map to date. Let's slide back to the chat and see where we're at. All right, Terry Mullins is in the house. Hi all. All right, so where are we at here? We've got Big Slow Target is talking about Lima 8. I'm assuming that's something on the map. Let's just slide over, take a quick look at Lima 8. And, okay, so Lima 8, we'll slide over real quick. Lima 8 is where this hex is, and they've got Home Fleet here. So let's just take a quick look at Klingon Home Fleet. Boom. All right, so we've got another 6 and 4, so another 10 F4s making their way probably to Hammer. So with another 10 of those bad boys, what are we thinking that they can do? So this is going back to the idea that the Klingons are going to hammer Fleet, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's not like, like the Marvel films, and maybe the Gorn will be like Tony Stark and just, embarrass Hammer all the way. Or maybe the Klingons will be playing the role of Tony Stark and putting Hammer to shame. We'll see. We'll see how that works one way or the other. All right, sliding back into our chat. What do we got here? We got Bill says, maybe it's only you the Gorn don't like, Tony. That's possible. That's entirely likely. Certainly is the case in another game that we're playing. Eugene, Carney drones have an N. Heel nippers? ? How do these differ from other Empire drones? Oh yeah, so the drones themselves don't have heel nippers. It's the way the counter is configured. They have the bracket, which is the drones, and then they have heel nippers. The drones themselves don't have heel nippers. That's heel nippers are an energy-based weapon, basically, and the drones are like missiles. Julian, welcome, Julian. Late to the party. Hope everyone has been well. Hey, Julian, quick question for you. As you are listening to this broadcast, are you hearing a delay in the sense of when you see my mouth moving, do you hear the sound, or is there some kind of delay? You let me know. It's been an issue going on. So if you see a delay, put a big yes or Y in the chat. And if you don't see a delay, put in an N. We'll see how that goes. Okay. Bill says, hello, Julian. And yes, been well. Hospital, repair ships, FRDs, modules for bases. These are all things that Bill wants to hear about. And Daniel says, an episode about some of the more offbeat ships might be cool. Hospital ships, rescue tugs, FCRs, drone bombardment, etc. All right, it looks like we're gonna have to produce a bunch of videos on that. That'll be interesting to discuss. So Terry says yes, he's getting the delay. God, that's annoying. Okay, so sorry. I'll have to figure out what's going on there. There is an update available for my vMix, so maybe that's it. Of course, there have been connection issues with YouTube. That's another thing. So yes, the audio is not in sync. God. All right. Well, I'll have to watch it later and see what's going on. Okay. Well, with that said, thank you very much, everybody, for this wonderful Saturday broadcast. We're a minute and 47, almost 48 minutes, an hour and 48 minutes into the broadcast. If you are this far in and you haven't already hit that thumbs up button, please consider hitting the thumbs up, liking what we're doing. George Forknell is yes on the delay. Oh, hey, George. Yeah, so annoying. We'll have to sort that out. I don't know what the issue is. We'll sort that in later. Okay, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. If you haven't already considered heading over to Coffee and firing us a coffee, please consider to do so. Also, if you're not a Coffee member, you can join our Coffee and Discord tier and join us after this live broadcast over on our Discord channel, where we will be discussing and bantering back and forth about what's going on with this audio delay, as well as rules and role play and all the bitter banter that goes back and forth. Salty commentary, friendly jibes, and of course, sharing all things good about Federation Empire and Star Trek and sci-fi wargaming and all that stuff. It's a part of our community, and of course, if you are a member of our Coffee and Discord tier or like a Coffee supporter, then you get first dibs on being able to join us on our next game. How does that work? Well, for example, most recently, we had 3 campaigns up and running. One of them has folded, so we have 2 campaigns currently rolling, and in those 2 campaigns we've had some concerns around players dropping, and so we've had sort of like some folks step in to be able to take over some of the factions to be able to keep playing the game. So if you are one of our coffee members, then you can jump in on those kinds of opportunities, and of course be first in line to join our next campaign when it gets going. All things to think about, and of course just joining the channel, joining the Discord server, and having fun as we go back and forth. So with that said, I will see you, cheers everybody, I will see you over there on our Discord channel. And if you're not already, please consider hitting subscribe like our supporter Melon Merchant, and seeing us next week, Saturday, when we do our next live stream. Or maybe you want some more pre-recorded videos. We'll see. Anyways, we'll see you next time. Bye for now, and I will see you next week. Ciao.